Hello everyone, I'm Rajeeb Banstola. I'm 19 years old, WordPress Theme Developer, currently working at ThemeGrill. And you can find me on Rajeeb classical video on the internet. And today I'm going to be talking about making the WordPress theme development better. Your workflow and the process you develop the theme can be made better with the help of tools that are available on the internet. So what I often hear from people is that there are too many tools that have much time to learn, and they just don't want to change with what they are doing. So what I do is I don't use all the tools available on the internet. I choose the best ones or those ones works good for me. I don't use all features provided by them. I choose those which are good for me. You can do that for your own. So this is the overview of things I'm going to be talking about. First is starter theme and tax runner and live reload, deploying using Git, CSS preprocessor, Git shortcuts, open documentation, easy for file, and PlayGrill local environment. So why do we need this? Let's talk about that first. The main reason is it saves my time. It saves your time. If you can use some tools to make the development time less, then it's better to use those tools. And we all know time equals to dollar or freedom or whatever you like to do. So how do I go on integrating these tools in my workflow? I note down the process and identify the points where I can use those tools to do some repetitive and tasks. So let's hear this story. It's about me, and I'm working till late night for some clients, and client doesn't want the new feature I did last week. Now I have to go through all those files in my server and find out the code which is getting those features, and I have to remove those. I tried that, and something is broken. Okay, there must be some better way of tracking those changes so that I can revert back to that. So use Git. Most of you probably know this thing. It is something that is fundamental tool for every teams to work. It makes better to work with some feature sets or maybe some bug fix without touching the main or master or stable code. So let's get to another story. Here's the current approach developing new thing. Most of you probably use any of these two approach. When I first started, I used the first approach. I coded everything from scratch, from all those WordPress function and styles that were already written by somebody else. But I did that, and I know it was repetitive. It consumed all of the time. So when I developed my second theme, I thought I would be a little smarter and use my own theme scheme. But even using that way, I had to undo all of old work. I find that the many components that were in new theme were in the old themes, and the old themes had so many things that were needed for the new theme. So I had to look back and edit all those things and remove all those things. So what's better? Building and using your own starter theme. Of course, there are many starter themes available on the internet, like _, automatic, roots, and many others. But what's even better? You can create your own starter theme. You can use your own coding style. Nobody knows the coding style better than you. You can use your own common codes, and you can even get more accessibility features. So here's the second thing: CSS and JS best practices. When I was first introduced to WordPress development, people talked about all these things like minify the HTTP address and minify the size of the download file. And I had to make my JavaScript function and variable names descriptive. But what I learned during my development workflow is that it was pain to work with minified file. I find it impossible to work with that. So there must be a better way. So I call it contradiction. Though they were the best practices, they contradict with my flow, my workflow. So taxons come to rescue here. Taxons like grunt and gulp are built on Node.js, and they use npm packages to run tasks. You can create a task in Gulp file.js and 8 Gulp tags you need for the tasks in package suggestions. You can either use Gulp or Grunt. I personally prefer Gulp. So here is an example of Gulp style task. You don't need to use JavaScript to understand this. So this is one of the example of Gulp tasks, and it is named style. The best thing is you can run this task in your command line using Gulp style. And what it does for me is that it looks for the file in SCSS, style of SCSS, and it compiles the SCSS file. It auto-completes the file, and it minifies the file, and even renames the files for me. I don't need to do any other things. I don't need to open some kind of tool to compile SCSS file, or I don't even need to remember the prefixes I need to add. It automatically does that job for me. So this is another task. It's called script, and what it does is it looks for all the files in content directory. It combines those files, and it minifies the file, and it gives me the minified version of the file by just writing Gulp script in the command line. I don't need to use all those tools or something. So this is another thing. I'm hitting F5 button and waiting for my browser to reload the page. It seems like many times, most times invested in this thing, but if you take into account all those times you are developing some theme or some for a blog or for client, then it's much time. So you can also minimize this with Gulp. I define another task called Gulp watch, and it looks for the changes in the files, and it runs the task defined at the side of that line, and it reloads my browser. All I need is a Chrome extension called Live Reload or Mozilla Firefox add-on called Live Reload, and it does the job. So this is another confusion I always had. I always end up with so my activity server is taking too long to upload my files. Should I keep on waiting because I have wasted my time for that, or should I stop it because it's taking too long? Activity is too slow, and it wants me to make the changes on the server, and that way I can't version control this thing. So you can deploy using Git and PHP load. It's a sample deployed INI file I use for my company, and it works with Git. It only uploads the changed file. It will upload all the files, and I can deploy it just by writing PHP load on command line. You can check that file. So another thing, first I avoided learning is CSS preprocessor. These are the three basic features I personally use: partials, variables, and nesting. And these are all available on these technologies like SAS, Lace, and Stylus. You can choose any of them. SAS is better and it's more popular. In partials features, you can divide your CSS into logical sections. As you can see, there's separate files for color, layout, typography, the index, and others. And another feature is called variables. You can define variables in your SCSS file, and you can use layers throughout all those SCSS files. And when you're compiling the SCSS file, it will give you normal CSS. You don't have to worry about that thing. And it's more helpful when you have some kind of color code that's repetitive on all those lines. Like you can just define a variable and you can change, and it will fix in your CSS. Another thing I love is nesting. I can write CSS or SCSS that makes the structure of my HTML. So this is another thing I love, Git analysis. And what it does is takes my handy software for Git tasks. Like I actually discovered in a situation when I had to make some small changes, and like for some changing a simple color code, I have to execute the git and commit that and push that. Using a simple command, I can use that to a single command. I just write the command and commit, and it will automatically add the file and commit that and even push to the server. This is the sample config file I use. And this is another part for me. It's in Google every time I read some new CSS or maybe a new PHP function or WordPress function. It's more painful when you have slow internet or maybe some kind of trouble with the internet connection. So what's better is offline documentation. I personally use Zero for Windows, and you can get that for Linux too. There's a software called Dash for Mac, and it downloads HTML, CSS, JS, PHP, WordPress documentation offline for me. So another thing I'd like to tell you is easy for file generation. I had one of my colleagues who hated this screen. It doesn't want to open this interface. So I found a way to get rid of this OED app. So God does the job, and you can see the task I defined here. It's called makebot, and it takes all those things and looks for the file and create a bot file for me. It is more helpful when you have made some changes or updated the version and probably you added a new string, and it's highly probable that you miss to create a new bot file. It's very helpful for that situation like that. So I'd like to sum up with the environment theme, like it's called varying vagrants. It's basically is a development environment for WordPress. It works with virtualization software like VirtualBox, VMware Fusion, and create a development environment for you. With this entering variant up in your terminal, you can have your one Ubuntu personalized Ubuntu server set up and running in minutes. So my final workflow is like this. I run the variant up, I clone my server theme, I do all of the git commit and .watch tags, and I debug the code using PHP loader. These are the references I use. You can find it online when I made this slide online. So that's it. Any questions?